Hello, and welcome to the Mzansi Soccer Show on One World Sports Radio. My name is Mpho. My Twitter handle is Mpho, and I'm with Thabang, and we do this every week. We discuss all things that are happening in the South African footballing scene. The show is just a reaction to the weekend's fixtures or midweek's fixtures, and then we delve into the big topics of the week. This week's big topic is the MTN 8 final. We'll be previewing that between Bloemfontein, Celtic, and Orlando Pirates, and we'll talk about the start of the multi-choice Diski Challenge, also known now changed to the Dstv Diski Challenge. We're talking about that, and also Samir Nurkovic getting back into training for Kaizer Chiefs, how big that is for the Perfeni Glamour boys. So before we start and we go into anything else, please remember to interact with us on these platforms that you're watching us on. So do please comment, like, subscribe to all these platforms, but most importantly, the one at the bottom, YouTube, please like and subscribe. We've got other content. We also have a Premier League show that we do. And as the cricketing season goes on, we'll probably have a cricketing show and also live cricket watch-alongs that we'll have on One World Sports Radio. T-Man, how are you doing this week, my guy?
I'm great, thanks, Mpho. I'm just a little bit tired from the long year of 2020, but I'm still pushing for that one last push this year.
That's good, T-Man. The year has just, this December period has always been, everyone wants to add everything in at this time of the year. Meanwhile, you ask them why they had 11 months. Why couldn't they do it then? But let's talk about the football on the field. Interesting games this weekend, T-Man. I'm just gonna show the results this weekend. We're back to what we know and love with the PSL with all the draws that are happening. So Arrows and Swallows drew, Pirates drew with Cape Town City, TTM and Amazulu also drawing. Maritzburg and Mamelodi Sundowns, that was a massive one for Maritzburg, but it's an Ernst Middendorp special there, I think. But then the two teams that actually helped themselves in this week is Stellenbosch FC as well as Baroka FC, who found a way to break to just get up the table while everyone was getting 1 point. They managed to get 3 points. Baroka is now sitting third, and Stellenbosch entered the top 8. Yeah, they've only just won 2 games. They've won 2, drawn 2, and lost 2. But what games did you watch this weekend? What results were intriguing for you, T-Man?
The big game for me this weekend was Orlando Pirates up against Cape Town City. It was a really, really good game. Both teams play attacking football. None of the teams hold back, and that's what you saw in the game. It was free-flowing football. Vincent Pule scored a brace for Orlando Pirates. Cape Town City also looked very good. Mzansi scored a cracker of a goal early on, and also Abu Bakar Mobara also scored a cracker of a goal. And sometimes you realize sometimes when a former player scores a goal against his former team, he doesn't celebrate, but Mobara went all. And I was listening to the commentators for the game, and they said that sometimes it all works on how did you leave that team particularly. Was it on good circumstances? Was it on bad circumstances?
T-Man, if I scored the goal that Mobara scored against my former club, I'd also celebrate the way he did. That thing was a rocket from about 30 yards out. The question I had with that goal was Richard Ofori. I don't know if he got a deflection or if the ball swerved away. It looked like it was a goalkeeping error.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, Mpho, because what happened earlier on in the season when Richard Ofori signed for Orlando Pirates, Wayne Sandilands did not make a mistake. He did not make an error. He was leading the team very well. And sometimes, yes, Ofori is a class goalkeeper, but sometimes if something is not broken, why fix it? But it was a great game of football. We saw some quality football from both sides.
What I'll tell you about that game was that there was a period after Pirates scored their first goal, after Pirates equalized, where they were just attacking Cape Town City on the counter. The Cape Town City defense looked in 6s and 7s. That game could have easily been 4-2 by the time 4-1 by the time Mobara scored that second goal. They were just missing so many chances up front. And everyone's talking about the defense of Pirates, being very porous. They've conceded 6 goals in 6 matches and only had 1 clean sheet. But the problem is actually up front. They just can't. They create such great plays. They move the ball so well, but in that final third in the box, it's bad. And Joseph Zimbauer says it's luck. I don't think it's luck. I think it just shows maybe that it's yes, it's a lack of execution, but it's also about a preparation on the field. Sometimes you need to make those strikers have striking practice at the end of the practice, and they must shoot their lives away there. But yeah, it looked. I was disappointed that it felt like Pirates lost 2 points rather than actually getting a draw in an away game. Did you get that sense?
100% for everyone this season is speaking about the attacking flair of the Orlando Pirates team. They're creating the chances. They're solid in midfield. They've got very, very good attacking players. Dion Hocho is absolutely amazing. The pace up front. Zuka Manja as well creates a lot of opportunities. But unfortunately, as you've mentioned, in that final third, they're unable to convert those chances. And that will come to haunt them because they are creating the chances. They're probably the most creative team in this PSL at the moment. It's just that, excuse me, it's just that final third where they're unable to convert those chances and that's where you find that they've drawn so many games and that's where it's coming from. It's not being able to convert those chances. Will it be fixed when Gabadino Mhango comes back, who was joint top goal scorer in the PSL last season? Maybe when he comes back, that'll be because at the moment you aren't really finding your solid number 9 for Orlando Pirates. The passer's there, but he's not really. He's not really converting the chances that are given to him.
He's doing very great work off the ball. That second goal they scored, the amount of runs, the type of cuts he was making with the runs to try and always be onside, and that really helped Vincent Boule there. So yeah, Lepasa, his finishing wasn't that great. He actually finished well against Kaizer Chiefs, but over the past couple of weeks, he hasn't been great. But he does the work. Mango did play towards the end of that game, and it didn't. You could see that it's slightly off the ball there. Any other games, T-Man, that you looked at? I really like that Stellenbosch, that win against TS Galaxy kind of gave their season a kickstart, especially with them getting in the new players that they were getting in. But that Maritzburg and Mamelodi Sundowns game, Sundowns really letting themselves down there by not putting Maritzburg United away. But it was a good performance from Maritzburg to come back from 1-0 down to win. Tembazwane is still scoring goals. You can't stop him. If we had a PSL fantasy league, I think he'd probably be number 1 point scorer right now. The man is on fire.
100%. Mamelodi Sundowns unfortunately didn't get a chance to extend their lead at the top of the table. You found Maritzburg United for their first point of the season. It's really been difficult in Peter Maritzburg for the team of choice. But luckily, they've managed to get their first point against the best team in the PSL. That can be a huge confidence boost for them. Kwandam Ngonyama, a former Mamelodi Sundowns youth product, scoring the equalizer there. Hopefully, this is the Maritzburg side. There's talent there. There's tons of talent in that team. And it's a team that we should be seeing going down to the Glad Africa Championship. They've got the leadership of Nazir Ali. They've got Keegan Buchanan in the middle of the park. They've got Galen Klassen, who played very well for the under-20s a couple of years back. So they've got a really quality team. And I think maybe with Middendorf's introduction and for that German philosophy for defensive-minded, but also defensive-minded, but he's also got a couple of good quality attacking players who can get them the answers. And as you said at the beginning, it's unfortunate that so many teams drew. And that is what the nature of the PSL is, that you find a lot of teams are drawing and not really taking opportunities, not extending their chances at the top. What that means is for the likes of Kaizer Chiefs, Maritzburg United, Stellenbosch, who've been struggling, because everyone is drawing now, you get 2 wins, 6 points, you're
top 4.
That's how it is in the PSL. You get 3 wins in a row, you second.
So if you look at it, after 6 games, number 1 is Mamelodi Sundowns on 14 points. Number 2 is Morocco Swallows on 12. But at 12, it's Kaizer Chiefs right now. They're playing their 6th game right now, and it's happening. It's still 0-0. And they are it's they're on 6 points. So if you win 2 games, you're there and thereabouts top 4. And that's what the teams at the bottom, the Maritzburgs, the Bloemfontein Celtic, the Black Leopards need to, and Chippa as well, and even Amazulu, because they have a good squad. They just need to realize and understand that a good run gets you back in. But on the other hand, the guys at the top would lose. Like we've been giving Swallows their praises, their coach of the month already. They lose 2 games, they can find themselves in mid-table. A one more game, you're back fighting with the guys you're used to fighting with. But let's move off of that. This weekend, we've got this weekend we have let me just sort out my technical things. This weekend we have a MTN 8 final, something that some teams haven't seen in a while. Last time Orlando Pirates was in a final or won a trophy was 9 years ago. I remember this week there was a flashback from the PSL showing us the day that Tembi who was it? Tembi Songobo put Pirates to the sword in 2010. Team, I remember that. It was 10 years, I think, a couple of days ago, where Chiefs beat Orlando Pirates to win this trophy. It's MTN 8. Only 8 teams play in the league. Bloemfontein Celtic got to the final by beating Mamelodi Sundowns and SuperSport United. So they've got credentials there. But obviously, T-Man, I know you are very high on this Orlando Pirates team, and you think that they're probably going to win the league. Is this the start for them, for Orlando Pirates? If they want to win the league, they have to take this one? Do they have to pull this one out the bag?
Well, the form of late has not been that evident of a league contender. As you've mentioned, they're not really converting their chances at the moment. Excuse me. They're not really converting their chances at the moment. But what we do know, Mpho, is that they've got the attacking prowess. They've got the flair players. They've got the crop of players they have at their disposal, Mpho. It's a wonderful array of attacking players. Dion Hoto, Tukamanja, Kabadino Mhango coming off the bench. You've got Tembi Mosiloch, who's injured, and you can also add. So they have to win this tournament at the moment. Bloemfontein Celtic is depleted at the moment. They're struggling in the league, but I'll come back to my but. Bloemfontein Celtic is depleted in the league. They're struggling at the moment. They haven't been able to kickstart their league campaign as much as they would have wanted to, but they do have some good players at their disposal. And recently, they've actually built up a bit of some quality cup runs. Remember that they were beaten by Mamelodi Sundowns in the Nedbank Cup
just 2 months ago. Yes, in the final.
It was a very, very narrow result, a narrow margin win there by Mamelodi Sundowns. And Bloemfontein Celtic have been, I stand to be corrected, but they've really had a good run in this tournament. They beat Mamelodi Sundowns in this tournament. They beat
SuperSport United over the 2 legs.
Over the 2 legs, we've underestimated them in each fixture that they've played, and they've completely surprised us. And let's look at the crop of players that they've got. They've got Letswalo up front. They've got Ndumiso Mabena, a veteran striker. He started off in the first division, has always scored goals. He is a former Orlando Pirates player, by the way. Remember,
yes.
He left another Mobara situation. He left Orlando Pirates not on the best terms. The fans were always on his back when he played for Orlando Pirates. And Ndumiso Mabena has only Ndumiso Mabena only found his form post leaving Orlando Pirates, the time he went to go join Platinum Stars. That's when he found his form. That's when he found his rhythm. So Ndumiso Mabena, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He would definitely want to use this game to kind of show the Orlando Pirates faithful that I am Ndumiso Mabena. I'm a veteran striker here in the PSL. I've really done well. I've matured as a striker, and here's an opportunity for me to kind of exert my improvement. They've got Fikisolo, the youngster, who used to light up the MDC. Very, very good player. Very pacey. Bloemfontein Celtic have got nothing to lose. We've underestimated them at every single juncture throughout their tournament run, and this is an opportunity for them to win some silverware, get some confidence up, and translate that into the league. Because, as you've said, it's not that's the nature of the PSL. You may be down, you may have lost 4 games in a row in the first 4 games of the season, but you're not out. You get your confidence back up, you get a nice 3-game run, and you're able to get your confidence back. So this is an excellent opportunity for Bloemfontein Celtic. And as you know, for Bloemfontein Celtic, finances finances have been tough. So really,
Oh, they got a sponsor today.
yesterday with Twiza.
Yes, the drinks company. So that's a good thing.
But let me kind of paint the picture a little bit there. But what I'm saying is that Bloemfontein Celtic, I think this tournament, them winning it from a financial point of view, it will be a really, really good contribution. And management, I presume, would definitely respect and honor the players, because these players have really, they've put their heads down, they've really focused over the past season and a half, and this is the reward that they deserve, because they got to the cup final of the Nedbank Cup. Unfortunately, they were beaten by Peter Mamelodi Sundowns, the king.
Peter special 1-0.
King at the moment in Africa.
Hey,
but
dude, you can't tell him anything. The man arrives within a month. He's won 3 trophies. But yeah,
I'll quickly go into Orlando Pirates. Orlando Pirates, it's a 6-year drought. It's a 6-year trophy drought for Orlando Pirates.
Isn't it 9?
Huh?
Isn't it 9? What's the trophy they won 6 years ago?
6 years ago they won the Telkom knockout. They won the Telkom knockout.
Oh, okay. So it's 9 years without the MTN 8. Okay. Now we're on the same page.
Yeah. So Orlando Pirates, the trophy drought is not. It's a trophy drought. It's a strong trophy drought. They at this they also hungry for a win. They've invested so much into this team that there has to be a return on investment. I think I've spoken extensively about Orlando Pirates.
Okay. So, T-Man, as you're saying, Bloemfontein Celtic, those guys are playing for their Christmas bonuses, so they'll come out hard. When I look at this game, I look at a game where one team, I've always seen Bloemfontein Celtic to, if they wanted to defend, they can defend. Yes, they've only won 1 game out of 5, out of 6 in the DStv Premiership. But I've always, when I've watched them, I haven't had a problem with the way they've defended. They've only conceded they've conceded 8 goals, which is a lot, in the DStv Premiership. But whenever especially in the MTN 8, they defended very well against SuperSport. They defended very well against Sundowns. They sat back and they waited for their opportunity, and they went with their guys. There's one guy you've missed out there. It's it's Potsane, who I think is probably one of the quickest players you'll find in the PSL. But so for me, that's the one thing. But listening to, and looking at this game, the thing about Celtic in that final against Sundowns, they played like they were frightened. And John Maduka spoke about this. It felt like they were inhibited, because the thing about Celtic that we've loved over the past year and a half with John Maduka at the helm has been how quickly they've been able to move the ball and to take that transition from defense to attack, having Dumiso Mabena on one side, Potsane on the other side, and just running this thing down your throat. And then on the bench, you had guys like Figi Zolo, you had Harris Chilumbu, who could come on and still give you that pace, and also Lutwalo as well with that. So the thing about this final is that they come against another great counter-attacking side. So the question I want to know is, whoever's going to try and go all out and try and attack will probably be punished by that team on the back end. The only difference is that I think Pirates has a little bit more quality from that counter-attacking style. John Maduka in his press conference has said that he wants his team to go all out from ball 1. I think that might be falling into Pirates' trap, because we saw that with Cape Town City. When Cape Town City attacked, Pirates came with those counters, and in that first half, it was wave after wave after wave of counter-attack, and only resulted in 1 goal for Pirates. But it's something that John Maduka needs to be very worried about and very wary about. And so, from my perspective, that's something that they need to do, because they caught Sundowns cold, and so in order for you to catch a team cold, you might need to play at that low block. And there are only a few teams in the DStv Premiership that can play that low block and still attack with about 3 or 4 players. Remember, Menzi Masuku still in that midfield as well. And so So they can, and they did this with two Black Leopards as well. They sucked them in last week, and then they went on a counter. It was Potsane, it was Mabena, and they just went. And so I think that's going to be the game plan for Pirates' problem, and this is where I think Pirates fans need to be worried about, is if you've got these quick wingers, this quick attack. How does that look like, especially coming after Cape Town City? With Cape Town City, there were moments where you'd ask yourself, oh, okay, we know that Pirates are the sea robbers, but it looks like they were being robbed on that field. There were some goals like that happened where you're like, but guys, come on. And it's happened throughout the season. There's lapses in concentration. Wade Juster maybe bombing down the one side, and all of a sudden them getting caught cold. And that Mubara also goal. It was a situation where the midfield needed to step up, and that's where Pirates comes in. Pirates' problem is not the back four. The back four is probably one of the best back fours you'll find in the DStv Premiership. The difference with Orlando Pirates is that midfield. I feel as though they need somebody to sit in that midfield and be that that man who's not going to attack, the man who's just going to sit, because it feels as though everybody's moving and Zobu's moving forward. Makaringa was bombing up, acting like another forward, and you have guys have just the back four being left behind. So from my perspective, I think that's where this game's going to be. It's not going to be a midfield battle. It's going to be a question of how quickly you can get the ball up, transition football. Once you get the ball in defense, how quickly you can move it forward. And it presents Celtic with the best opportunity to win this game. If you come in and say to Pirates, attack me, but know that when I get the ball, I'm going down your throat and I'm going to put it away, then yes. I have a slight issue with Richard Ofori in goals. I think he's a great goalkeeper, but it feels as though the Orlando Pirates, there's a bit of a Senzo curse there. Whoever's in goals, all of a sudden, their skill and what they've done before goes out the window, and there are lapses and concentration mistakes happening. And so those are the things that I think Jose Zimba needs to work on. For Pirates, Abel Mabaso's not playing. They don't have Tembiko Siloch, which I think is a massive miss for them. And Thabiso Monyane, who's their normal, who can also deputize on the right-hand side, he's also injured. And look, it's Zimbabwe's first cup final. He's new to this, so I think he'll add. There's no one in that team outside of Happy Jele who has lost in a final. So there's no fans, yes, and I think if there were fans, we'd see the Orlando Pirates faithful come through. Bloemfontein Celtic have a great group of fans. And that's the only thing that's disappointing about this game. But I think all around, I think it'll be a very entertaining game of football with two similar styles coming together. I just hope that when they come together, we end up in a dull draw and it goes to penalties. And the other thing is that we need to be cognizant of Bloemfontein Celtic have been playing in Africa. Pirates haven't. Chiefs and Celtic are the only two South African teams who have been playing in Africa this weekend, or CAF competitions this weekend. They played against the Cameroonian side, Midema. They won on penalties over the weekend at Celtic, but that could also be a factor in terms of player fatigue, whereas Pirates, having played on Saturdays, Celtic played on Sunday. There's no games this week, so they can rest, they can be fine. But it just speaks to possibly, this weekend. And Maduka didn't play all the starters. Mabena didn't play in that game in that CAF game, and they made it through. But it just says that this Saturday, we're probably going to get some very entertaining, fast-paced football, which is something you want in a cup final. You don't want guys to come in and sit back, and I hope Pirates doesn't sit back and try and build into the game, because we've watched Kaizer Chiefs, especially against TS Galaxy 2 years ago in that Nedbank Cup. They tried to not impose themselves, but try and build into the game thinking that a goal is going to come. If you're going to do that as Orlando Pirates, you probably will find yourself looking at Celtic with the gold medals. I do hope Celtic win. I want Celtic win just for the sake of the league, and also the fact that the players will get some Christmas bonuses, which would be very nice, especially winning the 8 million rand from MTN. T-Man, any final words on this game?
No, I think you covered it very, very well there, Paul. As you mentioned, both teams, there's a lot of pace in both teams, and it's going to boil down to on Celtic's side, you have to contain the Orlando Pirates players. There's a lot of ball players. There's a lot of quality that has to be contained. You can't attack too much and leave your defensive players behind. And I think they need to use Pirates' strength against them, and they need to contain the Orlando Pirates players, contain them as they attack in the early stages of the game, and try to catch them on the counter with the likes of Figizolo, Pozzani, with Mabena up front, Litualo. That can be their golden opportunity for. And I think you also mentioned they've also got Menzi Masuku as well, former Orlando Pirates youth development product. Also started out in the MDC for Orlando Pirates as well. He's just one of the MDC starlight stories and more. So hopefully he can also exert his dominance in the middle of the park and more. It's going to be a tight affair. Orlando Pirates confident. The form isn't where it should be. Celtic's form is probably worse than Orlando Pirates, but in terms of opportunity and a chance to kind of get your season back on track, this is a great opportunity for Bloemfontein Celtic. I'm wearing green, so my prediction is green for this weekend. Bloemfontein Celtic to win by two goals to one.
I think Bloem Celtic will come out of this 1-0. It's going to be probably the worst shooting performance we'll see from Orlando Pirates. But that's me supporting the smaller team.
You mentioned something quite neat there, Paul. John Maduka in his CAF Champions League game, he rested players, so he knows very well where the mindset is this weekend. The mindset
is. It's the money. We want the money.
It's on that 8 million.
John Maduka, if you're listening to this, we want the money. Bring the money home. Bring it home. But yeah, all the best.
If you win, you win 8 million. If you come second, doesn't mean you're going to get 4 million. Every single team, if you win the tournament, you get 8 million. Every single other team gets 800K, bro.
Yeah.
You have to. It's
literally
It's literally winner takes all. It's literally winner takes all.
And if he loses, thank you for coming. Yes, let's move on to the next topic. All the best to the two teams. Remember, I'll just put it up again. Saturday night, MTN 8 final. Bloemfontein Celtic against Orlando Pirates. I think it's gonna be a great game. I love the style of football these two teams play. Now, T-Man, you've spoken about MDC here and there throughout the show. This week, we saw the first weekend of the MDC. It started. We're happy to have it back. And it was essentially the PSL's reserve league. Now we're seeing news this week that the PSL clubs, the Dstv Premiership clubs, stopped calling it PSL. PSL is the league that governs the league itself. Dstv Premiership clubs have agreed to drop the age limit. It was previously under 23. You were allowed to have 8 players under 23 and only 3 players above it. Now they've dropped it down to 21, which effectively makes it an under 21 youth league with only 3 players being allowed over 21 years of age. I'm in between with this because on one end, you're giving youngsters a chance who were never going to get a chance in the senior team to get a run. Like we've seen with Kaizer Chiefs now, they've had to use the MDC as a farm system. So Safama came in, Ngob was in, Ngosingipila Ngob was in, Blom is in, and the right back whose name escapes me. But on the other hand, it's also a situation where you can't play your slightly older players, your 22, 23, 25-year-olds who are short of game time because like Mamelodi Sundowns, it's like 50 players who can fit into that 11. And on top of that, guys coming back from injury, similar to the reserve league that happens in the English Premiership, where it's youngsters mostly, but you'll get an appearance from older guys who are coming back from injury. What do you think around that? Do you think it's a great move? I think it's a good move because you want to see lots of youngsters, but also I think teams are going to be hamstrung, especially as the season goes on, in this shortened season that we started very late.
But what's the aim of the DSTV Diski Challenge? The aim is to create youngsters for the future. If you are 22 years old, 23 years old, you should be playing in the PSL. You should be playing in the MDC.
Or you should be playing in Glad Africa.
Exactly. Bro. We need to develop players in South African football. If we have 22-year-olds playing in the reserve league, I mean, where are we going as a country, as a footballing nation? Where are we going? We need to get players. The likes of Benny McCarthy started out at 7 Stars as a 17-year-old. Kermit Erasmus played his first game for Springbok United as an 18-year-old. Rivaldo Coutinho played for Ajax Cape Town. as an 18-year-old and made his debut for Bafana Bafana as an 18-year-old. Bongani Zungu played for Bafana Bafana as an 18-year-old. We need to develop young players in South African football. There's no such thing as too young. We're falling behind in terms of English players. Look at England, for example. Look at those players over there. Percy Tau rocked South African football at a very young age. Chilani Serero rocked South African football at a very young age. Stephen Pienaar went to Ajax Amsterdam as an 18, 19-year-old. Chilani Serero won the PSL Player of the Tournament, PSL Player of the Season as a 20-year-old. We need to develop players in South African football. What are players that are 23 years old doing in the Diski? You are blocking the path of another player. You're blocking the. You should, if you're 23 years old and you're on the bench in your PSL team, work harder. Try and get onto the establish yourself, push harder, work harder, and nothing against the players, nothing against the players themselves. I understand it's a competitive league. Teams are going to use the most experienced players, but I think in terms of the main goal here is developing our football talent for South Africa, making sure that our team at the Olympics that represents South Africa should not be MDC players. It should be players that are playing in the PSL.
And it is. And if you look at the 23 that was selected to play Saudi Arabia at the last international break, it was all under 23s. All of those guys were playing in the PSL. There were a lot of Chiefs players. There were some Sundowns players. Makhala was there. Blom was there. Ngobo was there. And Gezana was there as the center back. And so there are a lot of and that's the thing we've discussed this a lot, to say that the PSL should actually be a league for those guys between 25 and down. If you are 23, if you're 23, 24 in South African football, you should be playing in the PSL. But most importantly, you should be looking to be playing in Europe. That's the most important thing. So if we're saying that we want our league to have that gap between 23 and 21, a lot of those players, and possibly even closer to 25. And then after that, we should have those guys coming back from Europe, the early 30s, guys who couldn't get a final contract in Europe at age 29, 30, coming back. You've played your time in Europe and you're fine, and now you're coming back, and you have that mix of experience and the mix of youth, rather than having guys who are between 25 and upwards playing in the PSL and living in the PSL. And I understand, obviously, yes, we all have different talents, and all the players aren't the same. So there'll be some who'll be stuck in the system. But if I was a coach, if I was running a football club, I'd pay youngsters because they're cheap, and I'd play older players because they're finished. Yes, they might want a little bit more money, but they've got the experience to kind of help you win trophies because they've played in Europe, they've got the experience, and they're coming back. And that's the type of thing. Like, remember when Benny McCarthy came to South Africa again for that second stint when he played for Pirates? Anil Ngonga was another guy, rest in peace, who came back and added value to Mamelodi Sundowns. Those are the type of that's the composition of I ideally want in the DStv Premiership. Youngsters and older guys, and the DStv Diski Challenge should be that feeder system. Year in, year out, season in, season out. The best players in that get into the senior team. And if you're 23, 24, and you don't make the cut in your MDC team, probably Glad Africa Championship is probably the best place for you to go, and hopefully you can find yourself on a team that's making a great push for the DStv Premiership, and you can showcase your skills there. Team man, one last thing that I want to talk about. We saw, I think, this week the news that I keep on calling Yusuf Nurkic from the Portland Trail Blazers, Samir Nurkovic, the Kaizer Chiefs striker, is back at training. So it's a couple of weeks before he gets back into games. But how much of a great news is this for Kaizer Chiefs?
It's excellent news, Mpho. Samir Nurkovic, Mpho, trust me, this is a bold statement. Samir Nurkovic was 15 minutes away from being the PSL Player of the Season last season. I know how the PSL works, and I know how they make their decisions. He was essentially the PSL Player of the Season last season. The only thing that didn't work for him was that Kaizer Chiefs lost the league at the end. He's a proven number 9, top solid striker. I underestimated him when he joined.
I remember what you said about him. You said, why is Kaizer Chiefs buying players who are playing against doctors, accountants, and lawyers? So yeah. But look, he surprised you. I kept on saying that, hey, he could. If you can score goals you can score goals anyway. But yeah, he surprised you, team, and I stopped you in the middle.
Yeah, 100%. He was Kaizer Chiefs talisman last season. He kind of he hit a rich vein in goal scoring form early on in the season. Was on track to be the PSL goal scorer of the season. Then Kaizer Chiefs, unfortunately, they hit that slump that they hit towards the end of the season. So he couldn't really continue scoring the goals. But he did show us his quality. He showed us that gem of quality that he is. And he's probably the missing link at Kaizer Chiefs at the moment, because Kaizer Chiefs have been absolutely. It's been tough at Kaizer Chiefs. They really need an injection of quality, and I think Samir Nurkovic coming back is exactly what they need at this point in time to get their season back on track at the moment, because it looks like Kaizer Chiefs are fighting relegation at the moment.
Hey, dude, sitting at 13th, Kaizer Chiefs will be is fighting for it. Well, as you said, T-Man, earlier in the show, lose 2 games, you're at the bottom. Win 2 games, you're sitting pretty.
Yeah. I'm actually very keen to actually once the show is done, hopefully I'm hoping that Kaizer Chiefs are doing the magic over there. But if, as you
I
say,
can tell you now.
If they lose, or if it's still a draw, it's tough.
It's still a draw. I can tell you that now for free. But they moved the game later because they played in CAF. And the funny thing is they went to Cameroon and they won there. And they come back to South Africa. And yes, Gavin Hunt seemingly played a different side, but they still couldn't score against this team. And guess who Kaizer Chiefs have again in the next round of the CAF Champions League?
Who is it, bro?
Primeiro de Augusto of Angola. So Kaizer Chiefs is probably going to be knocked out then. But it's going to be an interesting one to go through. There's obviously the MTN 8 games, and then the games next week. The PSL resumes next week on the 15th and the 16th of December again, and we'll talk about that when we come back next week. But I think that's the end of our show. T-Man, do you have anything else that you want to say, anything that you'll be looking out for this weekend, or some guys? I watched the MDC. There were lots of goals in the MDC. TTM had a team that actually played quite well. So yeah, I was really excited about that. Even though we've never seen an Adidas kit that doesn't have the 3 stripes on it, unless if you're at the Olympics. But we'll leave it at that. Tiva, do you have any last things to say?
No, nothing at all, Mpho. I think you covered it very well, Mpho. I think MDC would over the next few seasons, I will definitely be watching the MDC to kind of unearth and see the young talent of football that's going to come up and lighten our football screen.
Yeah, so this week I kind of felt that teams, like some teams obviously haven't had the time to defend. The established teams you saw won. Sundowns went crazy. But from a standpoint, like TTM had trials on the Monday, guys were playing on the Saturday, like obviously defensively you're not going to be great. So we'll start seeing defensive patterns come through and guys actually show themselves. But this week was just a week for guys who essentially are you get to, when you're in a team and there's that one talented guy and he's running the show. Before we even start doing team tag, it was that, and I loved it because you'll see guys there just doing things, Samaya, and you're like, okay, this is actually quite entertaining. So do check it out. It's gonna be happening, and I'm happy that the PSL had the Dstv Diski Challenge in this COVID period, even though it's very hard to host a tournament with the cases going around in South Africa. T-Man, enjoy this weekend of sport, of soccer going on. I know you do no longer support any South African teams or international teams, so you'll just be watching for the Mzansi soccer show on One World Sports Radio. But yeah, so to everybody, enjoy. Thank you very much for joining us. Saw a lot of viewers coming through, so thank you very much for that. Please do follow us on these platforms. Follow One World Sports Radio. on these platforms and also on the YouTube channel. We'll post it on. We'll retweet this with the YouTube link as well, so you can see it fully. But remember, do subscribe onto the One World Sports channel on YouTube, where the content will be. Thank you very much, T-Man. I have a great weekend. Enjoy the games, especially that MTN 8 final. And we'll chat next week, talking the next week's fixtures. We'll probably do it on the Tuesday because it's a public holiday on the Wednesday. But yeah, do have a great weekend. And to you, the viewers, thank you very much for joining us. From myself, Mpho, and Thabang, Lesale Kakagiso.